SEO content strategist that I acquired, you guys heard earlier. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about content strategy. Alright, so first let's talk about what content strategy is. Does anybody have an idea, just sort of off the bat, what they think the role of a content strategist is? Yeah.
So a content strategist, you're developing the storyline that you want to pass along to your clients, to your users.
That's great, and that's a huge part of what content strategy is sort of coming up with the storyline for what you want your site to essentially communicate to the users, to the personas that you figured out, and how you're going to match their need states up with what you're putting on the site, whether that's sort of the SEO considerations or your standard marketing considerations. All of that is sort of tied into content strategy. But one of the bigger questions is, what is content when we're talking about content strategy? And content, at its root is just something that's contained within something else. So everything contained within the web is content. So when you begin to think about it that way, content strategy becomes this huge, overwhelming job because, the amount of content just on one website alone is huge. When I do a content audit where I go through every single page of a website and figure out its use and figure out its needs and whether it's meeting the objectives of the business, it takes a very, very long time, but it gives me sort of an overall picture of the website that I can begin to use to tell the brand story. Yeah, so it's everything we write, and so everything is content. Content is everything. Everything that we're putting onto our site, from the images to the copy to the videos to the design, everything we talk about is content. And lately, it's been a huge trend to just sort of talk about content. Every marketing director that you talk to says yeah, content. We're really pumped about content. We really want content strategy and content marketing and we want all that stuff. Can you guys give that to us? And generally that's it. That's really all that they care about. They pass it on to their other people and nothing happens. Because they don't plan for the content that they actually want. They just know that they want it because everybody wants it. Without content strategy, the king is dead. Content strategy is the art of organizing, researching, measuring, planning for, creating, promoting, and measuring the success of content. Everything that goes into the creation, all the way back to the stuff that Norris is doing, is content strategy, because we're thinking about how we want to engage our customer with everything forward-facing on our website. So content created without content strategy, or content created with content strategy is designed to meet the needs of the business. It's not just sort of thinking about what's going to look good on the website or what's going to make you look cool. You're actually thinking about the sort of customers that you're bringing to your site with your search efforts and how you're going to get them to do what you want on the site. So, if you're running an e-com site, all of your content should be designed toward moving those people towards learning about the product and then buying it. And if you're just sort of gearing them towards buying it, you're probably not going to do very well because they're not going to know anything about your product. That's something we run into a lot, is people just want, as soon as their customer comes onto their site, they just want to drive their customer directly to the enrollment page or to the purchase page. And the fact of the matter is the bounce rate on those is huge because nobody wants to stay on a page to buy something that they don't know anything about. So we actually try to guide them through the site in this sort of discovery phase where they learn about the product, and we think about what they're going to do, and we actually track the click patterns and how people are actually moving across the site. So it's all about sort of creating a journey for the customer, sort of creating a story like you were talking about. So it's designed to meet all the business needs with an emphasis on organic search when we're talking about SEO content strategy, which is what I do. And we think about the people behind the search. So this happens all the time where I'm looking at a keyword that has huge traffic, huge volume, and I wonder do we actually want this particular keyword? What was the person thinking about when they type this, and what do they want? And so everything we do is sort of geared directly towards that. These are two great tools you probably know about. Google AdWords Keyword Tool and SEM Rush, but this is a great way to sort of build up your keyword portfolio, start to investigate what people are searching, and then essentially with SEM Rush, what your competitors are already ranking for. So that's a big part of sort of competitive analysis as it relates to search. One of the things that we do when we're actually preparing content strategy for a client is we map all the words in their keyword portfolio into buckets and essentially map them to different pages on the site. So we know that the home page is targeting these particular keywords, and we know that their product pages are targeting different keywords because we don't want them to be competing with one another. You know, you don't want to be sort of cannibalizing your own search volume on a site. So, you know, we do a lot of sort of information architecture and then actually mapping those keywords to the various pages on the site. Another thing that we do, like Mike was talking about in the beginning, with SEO getting called in at the last second to sort of be the cherry on top with, oh yeah, we have to make all this rank. Really, when it's properly done, it's done from the beginning. I like to work with web developers personally when we're going through on the wireframes and talking about what are the SEO and content considerations for everything that we're putting onto the site. So that's sort of where an annotated wireframe comes in handy, where you take sort of the bare bones kind of visual element of the site, where is everything going to go, and then you think about how is that going to actually serve our needs for search and serve our needs for the customer. Another thing with content is it's not all just what you can see on the site. You actually have to dig in a little bit and find that there's content buried beneath the site in the code with metadata, right? So I spend a lot of time working on titles and meta descriptions because these are actually what your user is seeing when they come looking for you in search. But even, you know, brands like J.Crew aren't doing it right because the meta descriptions that they've come up with are just too long. They're getting truncated in search, and it's not telling the story of their brand. So there's actually, you know, it used to be 70 characters you could get for a title. Now it's actually measured in pixel width. So it's a little bit up in the air, but there's an actually a tool, I should have put it on here, it's called SEO Mofo. They have I try not to tell it to clients, but they have a great tool that you can actually, you know, type in what you're going to put in your meta title, and it'll judge it by pixel width, so you can plan all of that out. You know, wrote like pretty good copy that would have been great if you could see all of it, but you can't. It just kind of stops. And like you see this all over the web. Social metadata, they kind of did this right, but inadvertently, because they didn't actually plan any social metadata. Essentially when you share the page on social, you know, it sort of scrapes from the site and gathers everything it can and throws it into this little snippet here. It grabs an image, grabs a title, grabs a description. You can actually control that. They got lucky with this, but we use social metadata to sort of determine what actually goes into this. We do it for Facebook, we do it for Twitter, and we do it in a kind of weird way using schema.org for Google+. And when we do it right, as they should have done, you know, you get pretty looking descriptions like this where you can see everything, and everything is sort of optimized for a particular network that you're on. What they didn't do is actually make these different for Google+ and for Facebook, because if you did your market research, you would know that there are very different audiences that are on Google+ than are on Facebook. With social metadata, you can really get very granular with the audiences that you're focusing on. To learn more about content strategy, I recommend this book, Content Strategy for the Web. It's like the Bible of content strategy. It's not just about SEO content strategy, but you know, it's its own field, and it sort of touches on every other field in traditional marketing, digital marketing, and beyond. So that's it. Pass it off to Mike again.
So